Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Master Phil in your corner with your host, Master Phil.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Master Phil with Master Phil in your corner in the lovely studios, the Undefeated Media Studios in scenic Wyckoff, New Jersey, with my trusty sidekick, Dougie Fresh Friedman. And gosh, we're going to get into this today, Doug. I'm pretty excited to get into the 5 pillars of strength because we're on the last pillar right now. Number five. Hey, you know what's crazy? This is episode 60. I know we usually don't discuss what episode we're at, but now we're at number 60 already. This is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So just for everyone, if you're tuning in for the first time in the 5 pillars of strength, we did emotional strength, we did mental strength, we did physical strength, and we did financial strength.
That's a lot of strength.
That's a lot of strength, but there's one pillar missing.
Very important one.
And we're doing that today. That's spiritual strength.
I like it.
So we're going to get to our guests in a minute, but we have to thank our sponsors, don't we?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, first we're going to thank philross.com because without philross.com, we wouldn't be here today.
True.
So we have the Kettlebell Workout Library on philross.com as well as American Eagle Live. We have all the Survival Strong workouts as well as the instructional information. And there's instructional information on all the stuff. It's only $9.99 per month. Gives you access to over 500 training videos. We also have the Secrets of Kettlebell Training, okay? One-time price of $69 for full access to over 100 kettlebell movements demonstrated by yours truly, and it's in the hard style methodology of kettlebell training. We're doing the swing, the deadlift, the clean, the snatch, the press, the get up, the squat, and the row. So that's a lot going on.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Definitely get your money's worth.
Oh, definitely. And we're gonna work in some of our other sponsors later on, but we do have to mention Fit Team because did you get your Fit Team stuff yet? Did you order?
I have to set the press. I did most of it. I just gotta hit the checkout. We did it last week, and then
you forgot to hit checkout.
You left, and I didn't hit the checkout.
Okay, well we got to remedy that.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll tell you, especially the one with the turmeric in it.
Yeah, I want the turmeric.
2 little scoops. But wait a minute, it also has every vitamin B. Yeah, all the vitamin Bs, nice. Vitamin C, turmeric, and there's some other stuff in there too.
Nice,
fantastic. 2 little scoops. That's it. You think you have to take a big heaping spoonful? No, these like little mini scoops you put in.
And like we were talking about, they did this study and they found that like the Indian population who eat a lot of turmeric in their foods have the lowest rate of Alzheimer's and dementia. And they think it might be linked to turmeric.
It's a possibility.
So give me that turmeric.
That's it, man. It's and you know what? It definitely has an effect on your memory because you forgot to press the button.
Yeah. So don't forget the turmeric. Absolutely.
So we're getting into our spiritual strength today, and guys, we're pleased to have this incredibly special guest. I mean, it's fantastic that he's here. We have him right here at our fingertips. I can't believe it's awesome. The background on our next guest is incredible. I'm not going to tell his name first yet, but he's a priest in Wyckoff at St. Elizabeth's, and he's got 4 master's degrees and a doctorate in sociology, social work. I mean, incredible background. And that he's also produced and directed a feature film. So we're going to talk about that. Without any further ado, well, welcome Father Stephen Fichter to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Great to be with you guys.
So, what we're talking about is spiritual strength. Especially in these times right now, and this non-secular type of attitude is being put forth, and people are being inundated with internet things on social media, things in the regular media, things that they're pushing in the schools. They're all and actually the government, in my mind, is kind of pushing us away from religion. They kind of almost want to be the religion, and we've had dwindling numbers, and not just Catholicism, but many religions, and but I think people are missing out. I think they're missing out on the importance of spiritual strength. So, what can we do to bring this to the forefront with people and let them know how important spiritual strength is? I mean, you can be strong as an ox, you can have a ton of money, but if you don't have that balance of the spirituality, how much is it really worth?
Yeah. Oh, and I think, the world we live in today, though, there's a lot of kind of confusing terms. One of the things we find now, what you just discussed, was that there's a drop in religious attendance, people going to the mosque or the temple, the synagogue, the church, whatever it may be, in terms of formal participation in religion. And there's a growth of what we call the nuns, not Nuns, like the Catholic nuns with the habits on,
Yeah.
but Nones. So my work, I work for CARA at Georgetown University.
Yes.
So CARA stands for the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate. And we, like Pew Research and other other organizations, we've been studying religious participation, religious activity over the last 50 years. And you do see a decline in that formal participation.
Right.
But you do find a lot of people today say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. So I don't think there's so much a sense of like not being spiritual. I mean, I hear a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'm very spiritual, Father. I just don't go to church. I go for a walk in the woods. I go for a swim in the lake, and I find God in nature." A lot of people say stuff like that. So thank God we're not at the point where people are ignoring spirituality.
Yeah.
But I do think there is definitely a fall off in terms of participation.
Yes.
But we do all need spiritual strength. So whether we are looking for spiritual strength in normal religious practice, or we're looking for spiritual strength in these kind of newfangled ways as well.
Yeah.
We all know that we need it. There's a phrase that when I used to teach Latin many years ago, but there's a phrase we had: mens sana and corpore sano, right? A healthy mind and a healthy body.
Right.
And that's something, I'm sure, when you spoke about mental health and physical health, emotional health, all the things you discussed in your previous podcast, there's a recognition that, yes, we need that healthy mind, but I would say anima, sans anima, without having that healthy soul and a healthy body, like really what's more important, our body or our soul? Like, yes, we should take really good care of our bodies. I think nowadays there's a greater understanding of that we need to eat better. You guys are talking about turmeric. I have no idea what the heck that is, but sounds like it's really good. It maybe helped my failing memory. But right, so we know that we need to fuel our bodies with good food, and we also know that we need to fuel our minds with good thoughts and good things to read. But it's also really feeding the soul. How do we feed the soul? And I would say someone who has a perfect physical body but a corrupt soul, I mean, what is that? I mean, that to me is a wasted life. I mean, we really need to have that healthy spiritual soul inside this healthy body. So those would be some of my initial reactions to what you just said.
Well, one of the questions that I do have is, and I bring up the saying mens sano and corpore sano in one of my presentations, and the presentation has to do with depressants, anxiety, and exercise, and how they go hand in hand, and how you can eliminate, or at least reduce the incident or the severity of them through the use of proper exercise and nutrition. But when you said that, it's kind of struck a chord with me, because about the spirituality aspect, and that there's a lot of people that claim to have spirituality, which I'm not going to say they do or do not. I don't know. I can only speak for myself. But I do know that there's a greater reliance on these types of medications. I do know that there's higher suicide rates. So maybe, I don't know, is this just simple spirituality working? Is it working? Is it enough? Just saying you're spiritual, because the things that here when I go to church, right, I feel really good, right, and I try to go every week, and if I don't, then I'll watch it. I will do something, but I also read the book every night, and I say prayers with my daughter every night.
Mhm.
I'm accountable. I do it as a regular thing, as part of my routine, just like my training. Okay, I can say, oh yeah, I like to work out, but if you don't do it every day, they're not going to help you that much. So I don't know if these people, if they're not really kind of held accountable, whether it's held accountable to yourself or whatever, but if they're not making a regular routine, does a spiritual person necessarily make it a regular routine, regular enough to help them? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would agree. I mean, I think we don't have that normal routine. And many times as a priest, I feel like somewhat like a doctor or someone like a trainer for someone. How many times my doctor was telling me, because I have this genetic cholesterol problem, he was telling me, you got to do this, you got to do that. And, you listen to the doctor, but I mean, who doesn't want to have a good milkshake or a good cheeseburger, right? You know what I mean? So, and many times as a priest, I know, what we're preaching from the pulpit or what we're advising people in counseling is really, we know it's good for them, but also people know it's good to exercise every day. But you wake up in the morning and it's like, I don't feel like exercise. I'm not going to exercise. You wake up Sunday morning, so I know I should go to church, but I'm not going to go to church. So I think many times laziness overtakes us.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm a researcher at heart. And at my previous parish, I was really interested in finding out about those people who would come to church only at Christmas and Easter, right? So
C&E?
C&E, exactly.
Catholics?
C&E Catholics. Sometimes people call them Cape Catholics. Christmas, ashes, palms, Easter. So 4 times. They're twice as attentive as the C&E Catholics are. And so at one time at a Easter Mass, I had little surveys in the pew. So after the homily was over, I asked people, how often do you attend? And I asked a number of different questions. It was about a half sheet of paper. And I said, if you're not coming every week, what are the reasons? And as a good researcher, I put out 4 different categories that I thought were logical. Too busy. That's a typical one I hear from people. And I always say, well, if you're too busy for God, I always say, you're just too busy,
Let me interject 1 second there, because that is the number one objection to working out is too busy. But I'm giving them an answer though. And maybe this might help you with something too. I'm actually writing a book right now. I just decided on the publisher, so we got the deal, and it's called Exercise Snacks: Fitness 5 minutes at a time. So there'll be 50 workouts in it that can be done in 5 minutes.
Nice.
Thereabouts.
Oh, good.
So maybe we could.
I was going to say there's something to it there. Anyway, I could go off on that tangent, but let me get back to my thing there, because there was a little book we used to give out. Well, we give out every Advent and Lent, the little black book, the white book, and we always say to people, hey, it's just 6 minutes a day. I mean, hey, can you do 6 minutes a day? We're not that busy. But anyway, getting back to the survey I put out to these people, I said, is it too busy? Or, as I sometimes hear, or was there a negative church experience? Did a priest yell at you in confession? Or did a nun hit you with a ruler when you were a little kid? Or, which I never personally experienced, but I've heard people say these things. Or do you disagree on maybe some teachings of the church or whatever the issues may be? And I was absolutely amazed, because when I got the answers back, I put other as my last category. And that other category wound up actually being one of the top answers.
Really?
And people just wrote in the word lazy.
Wow.
And as a researcher, I would never put a value judgment type of word on a survey, check off if you're lazy or something. So I was trying to put it in a more positive way or whatever. So that to me explains the fact that, I think we live in this world where that laziness does overtake us. And hey, for example, this morning, I usually work out half an hour every morning. I have my stationary bicycle. I go 10 miles in about 27 minutes. It's a good workout, a good cardio. And this morning I woke up and I just said, you know what, I'm going to take a pass on this one. Didn't do it today. So I felt a little lazy. And I said, that happens to people as well. But let me get to another point though, because I mean, I think you're so much into the fitness business, let's say, and actually Phil and I go way back. I'd say about 20,
Oh, it's gotta
20
be
years.
It's over 20 years.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I remember when you had that place out in Hohokus, we used to work out there early in the mornings. And also I buried your dad when your dad passed away. And there's a lot of good stories about that. Loved your dad, love your mom, love your family. But
and they love you too.
well, thank you. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it back. But one of the things, is that there's a very famous book in the history of Christianity, which is known as the Spiritual Exercises. And it was written 500 years ago by St. Ignatius of Loyola. He's the founder of the Jesuit order, which most people know the Jesuits in terms of their universities, Fordham, Boston College, Georgetown that I work for, and all the others. But this book that he wrote 500 years ago is about that spiritual exercises, just like we do physical exercises to do our push-ups, our crunches, our whatever we do, or kettlebell things, which I've never done kettlebells. You'll have to show me someday. I think that's a little out of my league right now, but
you never know.
I love how you call them kettlebells.
Kettlebells. But you know what? Listen, they've been called everything.
There you go. It's out of my league.
They've been called everything, especially when I first started. Kettlebells, cowbells. I always think of John Voight and Saturday Night Live, more cowbell. But anyway. But this is super interesting to me. This like spiritual fitness, a spiritual workout. I mean, that's really striking a chord with me.
Yeah, and what St. Ignatius developed, and again, this is 500 years ago. So he developed basically a 30-day plan. And the idea was, if someone's at a particular fork in the road in their life, they're about to make a major decision. Hey, I'm about to get married, or I'm about to enter the seminary, get ordained as a priest, or make whatever big kind of major decisions in your life that are going to really pretty much affect the rest of your life. He wanted you to go on a 30-day silent retreat. So the idea is you would go away to like some monastery where you would have no distractions. Now think about back in the Middle Ages, the number of distractions those people had compared to what we have today. I mean, we're minimal, right? I mean, we have our stupid cell phone, blinking all the time, emails and stuff. But the idea was to get into silence. And I really believe that spiritual growth really begins with silence. If we don't allow ourselves to enter into that silence in which God speaks to us, we're never going to do it. And so think of the world we live in. How many people, they wake up in the morning, the radio alarm clock is playing the news, they jump in the shower, they're hearing their music, they jump in the car. I mean, we're surrounded by so much noise pollution, I would call it, that there's not that time to be silent. One of the things I try to do at our church is after we receive communion, and sadly, I think many times the American mentality of like, get people in, get people out, receive communion, which should be the high point of the entire week of your spiritual life, and everyone's like running for the car, they're going. So I try to give 1, 2, 3 minutes of silence for just everyone to stop and reflect and pray.
Now, do you think more marriages would work out if every other month the husband was silent and then the next month the wife was silent? I think that might help out. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
It could be. Let's experiment with that one. You guys want to volunteer?
Hey, well, we're both married.
Doesn't sound bad to me. Let's give it a shot.
But anyway, so what St. Ignatius did, so it's this 4-week, basically 1 month experience where, and each week had a particular theme. So in the first week of the spiritual exercises, you're to really get in touch with what he calls the principle and foundation of life. And that is to realize that I'm just a creature. I am not the creator. There's an almighty creator who created the heavens and the earth and everything in between, and myself included. And I have to recognize that this creator is the boss basically of everything. And how do I relate to that? And I recognize in that, as we read in the book of Genesis, that when God created each day, he said it was good, it was good, it was good. And then on the last day when human beings were created, he adds in that adverb that they're created very good. Right. And we were created in image and likeness of God. So that first week is to realize that, I'm part of God's creation. I'm not the creator, but I'm a beloved creature. I'm a beloved son or daughter of God. And that's every single human being, not just Catholics, not just Christians. Every single human being, was created in the image and likeness of God. And that realization is beautiful there. And we recognize and we thank God for it. But then as it goes on that first week, as much as we know that you're very good, I'm very good, we're all trying to be very good. The reality is that we're not perfect, right?
No.
We mess up, we slip up, and maybe I could ask your wives if they could give me some
You don't have all
information on that.
You don't have all day. The show is not that long.
So the realization of sin, right? And what sin literally means, from the Greek, it means missing the mark. It's like, you're shooting a bow and an arrow, and we don't always hit bullseye time after time, right? We try to, but we're off the mark. So that first week is that realization of that. And then I could go into each of the weeks, which I won't bore you with. But for me, the thing that really touched me was that he's saying, these are exercises that we have to do to improve our soul, to improve our relationship with God.
Right.
And in many particular instances, he gives like really specific exercises to do. And for example, I was just helping a person who was about to make a major life decision, one that's really going to alter his life one way or the other. And I was saying to him, it's like, well, one of the exercises that St. Ignatius speaks about is, he says, try to imagine yourself on your deathbed 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, however you old are you now, calculate what you think more or less would that be. And basically the question is, how would I feel when I'm about to meet my maker? How would I feel about this decision today? And how much of it is being driven by my selfishness, right, or my lack of commitment, or whatever you want to call it, or how much of it is being driven by this really great motive of sacrificing myself for the good of others, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can go through it, but that idea, like, to really make that effort to imagine yourself on your deathbed and how you think you'll feel about the decision you're about to make. That's an amazing experience. How often do people ever stop and think to do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't.
They don't.
They just don't. I mean, I want to delve into this spiritual exercise. Yeah. I mean, I think that you hit on something. I mean, I don't know if it's really feasible for me to go 30 days without speaking. I think I would probably lose. But there are, I'm sure there's types of modifications or just the silent period. Like, I'll tell you, the funny thing was when I went through a period of my life and, I needed a lot of noise around me, because I didn't want to be with myself. And then I said, no, you have to stop this. And so I'd shut off the TV, shut off the radio, and just hear nothing and be with my thoughts. That's why, I think that meditative time is very important. And whether you're whether it's during prayer or just meditation, something you have to connect. You have to connect with yourself. And I think people are constantly running away from themselves, being distracted by this, distracted by that. And it's super difficult not to fall into that trap. Because you look at everything around us, which is being bombarded left and right, like you said. So that's why, my cell phone, I go to church, I leave it in the car.
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't even put it on. So I don't want to know about it. You know what? Boom, it's gone. You just need to remove yourself.
Yeah. And just going on to that theme of adaptation, as you were just talking about it. So realistically, right, how many people could actually get 30 days away, right? It's unreasonable to think anyone could do that. So there are different adaptations. Like, there's a book I'll share with you later. It's called Moment by Moment. And it basically takes St. Ignatius's idea of the spiritual exercises and it makes it into like 20-minute reflections, meditations that you could do, over the course of a month or a few months, but basically go through the ideas. But just as I've guided many people through the process, I say, as long as you can give 15, better 20 minutes a day, just undivided time. And I say, listen, you just got to find your place. Like, me, I'm an early bird. I'm up at 4:30.
Right.
I love it. But by, 8:30 at night, I'm yawning. By 9:30, I better be in bed, But each of us has our moment of the day, which we know is better for us.
Right.
And then I say, find like a little prayer corner in your house. Find a little space where you can go every day. What you're saying about accountability, I think, is so true as well. Just hold yourself accountable. And I think one of the greatest seasons for that just passed, Lent.
Yeah.
I mean, for whatever reason, we find that whenever we organize things at church, if you do something during Lent, I mean, people just really gravitate to it
Yeah.
because I think there is that sense like I want to forge my soul a little bit more. I want to deny
Fortify
myself
it,
and do those type of things. But those adaptations are there, and I think it's just a matter of finding what helps you. And as I often say to other people as well, in the Catholic Church, as it is in so many other religions, we have so many different practices. For example, I was taught to pray the rosary at a young age, but I was taught in such a beautiful, warm way that I've loved it. It's like 15 minutes of peace for me in the middle of like a crazy day. Sometimes I pray it when I'm on my exercise bicycle. Sometimes I pray it when I'm driving my car, but it's finding that practice that resonates with you. And then I've known other priests who are really great holy priests, and I say, well, do you ever pray the rosary? They're like, no, it's never done anything for me. And each person is different. Like there are practices out there. There's this thing that we call Lectio Divina that we teach our parishioners, which is a divine reading. It's basically just take a gospel passage or any passage from the Bible and
so that's Latin, just to let you know. Lectio, read, just let you know.
There you go.
He's helping you out. I took 4 years of Latin, so
there you go.
It's starting to come back.
So anyway, but those are the type of things I think if we all try and start by baby steps. I mean, you do the same thing when you train people. If someone say they're, I don't know,
deconditioned, let's say.
And they need to start. You're not going to start them off with the kettlebells.
Nice.
Right?
You could call them the balls. I like the kettlebells.
They look like balls.
They didn't start off like that though. The kettlebell.
How'd they start off?
Well, actually, the kettlebell was used as a means to determine how much a farmer got paid for the goods they brought. So what happened was they would have the scales, and the guys who weighed them would throw these different sized kettlebells up onto the scales, and it would, weigh out. So, okay, we got this much kettlebells for that much corn. That's how much money you get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unit of measure. Then.
Yes, it was a unit of measure. And basically what happened was the Russians scoured the countryside in like the 1800s to see who were the strongest people. And these guys that were throwing these kettlebells up onto the scales were just like ripping everyone apart. So they said, this is a good way to train. So they developed a whole protocol around the kettlebell.
Nice.
Wow. Thank you.
Nice.
You learn something new every day.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I got something for you guys, and you can either take it or not touch it with a 10-foot pole. So with spirituality, a lot of people think that it's, a lot of people have trouble putting it with something tangible. They like to see things, hear things, like feel something, right? So there was a study done, and hopefully this helps our conversation here. There was a study done where they had, it was in like China or something. This guy took water, right? Separated the water in one freezer. He put the water in the freezer. He had nice, pleasant music playing. And on the water bottles, he wrote nice, pleasant words. Happy, good job, goal setting, whatever. Positive stuff. On the other freezer, dark, gothic music. And on the words he wrote were like, I hate you, you stink, whatever. So positive freezer, negative freezer. Overnight, they froze. Now, what he found was in the pleasant freezer with the happy words and the happy stuff, he zoomed into the crystals and looked at the crystals, perfect, symmetrical, beautiful crystals. In the negative freezer, jagged edges, not symmetrical.
Wow.
Yeah, so
crazy.
I mean, because like a lot of stuff that we're talking about with spirituality is like the words and the music. So like when you go to church, you're getting a nice positive message. There's nice pleasant music. So you could be putting yourself into a pleasant freezer.
That's very interesting. I've never seen that study, and I'd love to get that from you later to take a look at that. But I think that positivity is something that obviously is very important for our human growth. One of the things that I often speak to people about, there is this Chilean psychologist, or she's still alive, Ana Maria Risotto. And she did all these like different studies, and it's kind of a roundabout way to touch on your topic, but I thought it was really interesting. So she brought in a bunch of people and she asked them, tell me, give me 10 adjectives to describe your dominant parent.
Mm-hmm.
And the people would write down, either warm, loving, friendly, forgiving, blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes they would write down, judgmental, harsh, mean, cruel, whatever it is. And then she did a few other psychological things, had them fill out a few different things. They went home, they came back a few months later. And then she was asking them a whole bunch of another battery of tests, but she said, now give me your adjectives for God. And the people would write, distant, judgmental, cold, non-existent, or loving, warm, tender, compassionate, forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And then she started running the correlations. And what was absolutely fascinating for her to find was that those correlations, that if you have a kind, loving, compassionate father, and then you're taught when you're a kid, think about it, in the Christian tradition, you're taught our Father who art in heaven. So right away, you're praying by analogy, right? So if you've had like a really bad earthly father, like why would you want a heavenly father, right? And so I think a lot of that tenderness, compassion, and love that you were talking about there, that also creates that openness. And then it leads to another book, actually a friend of mine, he teaches psychology at NYU, Paul Vitz, and he wrote this fascinating book called The Faith of the Fatherless. And he was, he himself is a believer, but he was giving a course on atheism at NYU, and he was preparing all of his.
So I'd like to talk about atheism a little bit too.
Yeah. And what he found, I think, well, after I explain this part, I think this will feed a lot into it. So he was preparing this, and he did a little bio on the top 30 atheists, which really atheism only came in like the last 300 years, basically from Europe. And as he read the life story of each one of these top atheists, he noticed a pattern. It's what he called the defective father syndrome. Either their father was alcoholic, abusive, absent, whatever it was, and no one else came in to step into that role when it was missing. So then again, logically, he said, well, now I taught like our Father. And then he said, well, then we go to the theist philosophers of that same time, in those same centuries, in those same countries, and all of them had that good, positive, nurturing relationship. It doesn't mean that the fathers were perfect, right? No earthly father is. But if there's that warm, loving kindness, there's going to be that easier ability to make that leap. And then the excursus at the end always like haunted me. And I forget if it was either Hitler or Stalin, but he said, what was the one common denominator between Hitler, Stalin, and Mao Zedong? Besides the fact that one killed 13 million, 20 million, and 60 million people, I think, respectively, what their numbers are. And is that ultimately, and I think it was Stalin or could have been Hitler, but when he came home from school every day, there were like these beams in their house, and his father would dangle him over the beam, like, and like strap his arms like this over the beam and just beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. So much to the point that you become so callous to pain and so callous to everything. And then, and that's how I think so much of that atheistic reality, came into the world, that they weren't able to make that leap into a loving, kind God. So I know it's a roundabout way to touch what you're talking on, but I say that to a lot of parents with like, young kids. It's like everything you do, and sometimes you have to correct your kids, right? Sometimes you have to discipline them and, keep them on the right path. But if they know that it's coming from a place of love, if they know it's being done with tender compassion, there's going to be a greater ease for them to follow through.
If you look at most of the ills in society right now, they're due to fatherless homes. You look at the lack of leadership in some communities, and these kids, they don't have dads at home, and the government trying to replace the father is one of the worst things that we can do. So it's such a disservice, because you look at those numbers, the numbers don't lie. And it's funny that, when you're speaking to that and you call our Father, right? And if your father is not there or not good, either you find a replacement for him, or you have no replacement, you don't have any belief. That's interesting. I never really thought of it like that, but that's extremely interesting.
Yeah. And there are exceptions to the rule, and there are times when people there, but and I've worked with the gangs in Patterson and inner city places, and it's really rough for those kids growing up. But hey, it's also rough in suburbia as well, in these environments where, I've worked in some of the wealthiest communities, and the parents are jet setting all over the world,
forgetting
and the kids are just there kind of without any of that love or attention as well. So it's very, very painful. And, hopefully we can, as a society, recognize the importance of, family values, and recognize the importance of spirituality and religion and kindness and all those things that you were talking about. Because ultimately we're not islands, and we're all interconnected. And that's the importance, I think, of our lives, that we try to do that. But, anyway, I could go off on a lot of different tangents, but I hope I answered some of what you were talking about there.
You did. I know Phil has something. I'll keep it super short because it goes right with this. It makes perfect sense what you're saying. There was another study done where they had a guy like tying his shoe with a cup of coffee, and he said, "Hey, can you hold this cup of coffee real quick?" And some people were handed a hot cup of coffee. Some people were handed a cold cup of coffee, like iced coffee. The people who were handed iced coffee, they said, what did you think about that person who had to tie his shoe and handed a cup of, oh, he was rude. How dare he? This, that, and the other thing. The people who were handed the warm cup of coffee, oh, he was so nice. He asked me so nicely. Yeah, I didn't mind. So definitely going what you're saying. Like if you have these correlations, you have these experiences, the smallest thing could make you very judgmental about other stuff.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Useful information. A lot of useful information. Useless information in here.
No, they do. They're interesting. As a researcher, I'd love to take a further look into that. But anyway, Phil.
So one of the things that comes to mind, and I'd never thought of that father situation, but I know in the martial arts and in sports, me being an instructor and a coach, many times I'm sought out, or the people come to me like a father figure, because maybe they don't have enough of one, or they don't have one at all. And I'm actually finding the same thing also in my teaching now too. So people want a father figure. People desire that, but without it, things can go wrong, and especially if you have a bad father, like Richard Klaczynski, right, the Iceman.
Yes.
Yeah. So if
you ever Dumont,
if you ever see that special, his father beat the daylights out of him, and so did his mom. So he never had any any respite at all. But the thing is that when I think of people who don't have God, any type of God in their life, and I just said, well, let me ask you something. If you go to the top of a mountain, because I hike and so forth a lot, and you go to the top of a mountain, and you look out, and you see how vast the world is, and how insignificant you are. You're not the end all be all. There's something bigger and better than you, and no matter who you are, like Elon Musk is the richest guy on the planet right now, right? But he's got to answer to somebody. You always have someone to answer to. So, you're not that important in the scheme of things if you look at it, right? There's something much better, and you can do the same thing. Use the same analogy with the ocean. You go to the edge of the ocean, you can't see the end of it. Realize how small you are.
Yeah. And I think you're actually touching on one of the thoughts that was kind of going through my mind since you invited me here. And I was thinking, spiritual exercises, and we should all try to do these things to get our soul in better shape, just like we try to get our bodies in better shape, as we try to get our finances in better shape, et cetera, et cetera. But I think one of the counterintuitive things of Christianity, obviously being a Catholic priest, that's my spirituality, is that we recognize that our strength really comes from recognizing our weakness. And your dad and I used to have these arguments. I'm a Red Sox fan, your dad was a Yankee fan, and the night before his dad died, he was emailing me about the Yankees winning a game or something. We're going back and forth and this stuff. But what's that closer's name? I'm drawing a blank now. Mariano Rivera, right? And actually, I had dinner with him a few years ago.
Wow.
Great guy. Really loved the guy. Really nice. And we were talking about the Bible the whole time. The whole dinner. It's just the four of us at the table there. It's great.
Wow.
But, Mariano had etched inside his glove, Philippians 4:13. And I was like always like curious about that,
Yeah.
that you have a Bible phrase there, and the phrase says, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me, meaning that like I recognize I'm just a weak human being. Like you were saying, when you're standing on top of a mountain, or I remember the only time I've ever been to the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
I was just overwhelmed by that. It's like, oh my goodness, you feel so minuscule, and yet you see the grandeur of God and your own mortality and your um, smallness and everything. But I think that's the great part of this spirituality. And I think many times people do come to spirituality and come back to religion when they are at what they say in many of these 12-step programs, they're bottom.
right.
When they finally realize they've messed up so much, their life is really turned all around, and there's really nowhere else to go but to go to God. And it's like Abraham Lincoln had that quote, and he goes, when I haven't known where to go, I've just gone and fallen to my knees, recognizing that I can't do this by myself, and I need to reach out to that higher power, or as we call it, God or Christ. And so I think that's how I would probably approach a little bit what you were just saying, is that, yeah, it's all about strength building. It's all about doing that. But it's that recognition, like for the way we start Mass every week. What do we start off by saying after just going, name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit? We pause for a moment and we say, hey, God, I messed up this week. I'm not perfect. I'm a sinner, but I'm a beloved sinner. I know you love me. I know you created me out of love. I know you've destined me for eternal love, but I'm coming before you with great humility, with great honesty, saying I'm not perfect. And I think that saying I'm not perfect, it's kind of like you're opening up the front door of your soul and your mind, and you're saying, hey, I need you. I need your grace. I need your inspiration. I need your power. And then I always call the back door of our souls kind of the gratitude door, that you kind of close the back door to say, God, hey, I'm grateful for all of these things that you've given me, and appreciate where they've come from, and hold on to them. But if you don't open that to that grace, you're not going to receive it. I say the same thing to people who don't come to church all the time. I said, it's almost like a spiritual anorexia in a way. It's like, it's there. The food is on the table. It's there, but for whatever reason, you're not engaging in it. And it saddens me, because it's so much good it would do. And yet I think, it goes back to what we were saying before, that we're not always looking in the right places to get that fulfillment. But I think when you hit that bottom, and as a priest, I deal with a lot of people in those moments, it's like, thank God there's that moment where they can, come back out. But I would hate for people to have to wait to that bottom. That's not, there's no point of that, because sometimes you don't make it through the bottom. Sometimes people die as they hit their bottom.
I mean, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So why don't we avoid the bottom? One of the things that, and I was wondering if you ever ran across this, one of the objections that people have to organized religion is they view it as something of control, that they feel like they're being controlled by the religion. Because I know there were times when you were supposed to fear God and this, that, and the other thing. But, there is a thing called restraint, which I think that people should exercise. And, if you use religion to do it, however, a lot of times, most of the time, we use religion to do it. I mean, because if we just constantly went with our impulses, it wouldn't be a good society, because every time you got mad at someone, you would be knocking them out or running them over with your car or doing something.
There's no religion in Minnesota?
Evidently not. In Minneapolis, anyway. It's, so, have you run into that? Have you addressed that people say, gosh, this organized religion is all about control. All you want to do is control my money, control my thoughts, control this, control that, blah, 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 blah.
I guess, I think people are very polite when they're around priests. So I don't think people always share those things with me. But sometimes when you have, a good conversation, a real heart to heart with someone, why they're not coming, I've heard that once in a while. But I think everyone recognizes the fact that, in terms of religiosity, there are positive things that are there. I've never heard them say there isn't, but I think many times people, maybe there's some parts of their lives that they just don't want to change, that they know they're kind of doing something wrong. And so, it's an easy excuse, if I'm cheating, or I'm stealing, if I'm lying and stuff. Well, I don't want to go to a church where I'm going to hear, hey, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie. Like, I mean, deep down, we know those are wrong things, that we shouldn't be doing them. I think even a person who doesn't have religion knows that in the depths of our soul, the depths of our conscience. But it's a complicated world we live in. And, I really believe with Pope Francis, that whole idea of really not judging others and treating them with great mercy. People are where they are because of their life circumstances. And hey, as a church, I mean, we failed miserably. I mean, our track record in the last few years, with a lot of the abuse cases and stuff, were really sad. I mean, it's you remember when I was at St. Gabe's and the news broke. I mean, I remember got into the pulpit that weekend, and I just started crying. I mean, I just couldn't get through it. It just felt so, devastated by it. So that's probably more what I hear from people. They say, well, organized religion is a sham, or, these priests are pedophiles, or whatever, winds up going in that.
Just for the record, the sexual abuse of children in public schools is about 3 times that it was ever in the Catholic Church. Just, but that gets pushed by the wayside. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and a lot of the sexual abuse, but it should never happen.
It should never happen anywhere. I'm not making an excuse.
Exactly,
No, that's not permissible at any level. And that to me, it's probably the most heinous crime that you can do is something to a child.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
That's got to be the worst.
And it's like, I also think the thing where, people might have had that negative church experience. Right. Hey, as priests, we're human beings. And I've heard people say to me like, hey, I went to this priest asking for advice, and he like yelled at me. And I don't know, maybe the priest was having a bad day or something like that. But
maybe they needed to be yelled at. I don't know.
or no, whatever it was. But no, they were looking. They probably need, at least for the version of the story I heard. I didn't hear the priest side of it. But those things happen, and it's like the phrase I always use, and it's kind of like theology 101 as we talk about our church. It's like it's divinely instituted, but humanly constituted. So we're always going to have that weak human element as part of it. So, let's just accept that reality. Let's not lose the ideal, but let's also try to be realistic. Because if you're looking for a perfect school, or a perfect religion, or perfect church, or a perfect coach, or a perfect spouse, or a perfect anything, you're going to be disappointed. Perfection just doesn't exist in this life.
No. I mean, the thing is that, we always fail. If you think about it, you look at even a person who's very successful financially, how many financial failures did they have? You look at, like, just take something like track, right? You don't always do your best. Matter of fact, most of the time, guess what? You don't. Okay, so you don't do your best the whole time, most of the time.
Yeah, well, I think these professional basketball players, at the foul line,
right?
We have a kid from our parish. I mean, this kid is an amazing basketball player.
Yeah,
but he just won I guess it was the state or the county level. He made 34 out of 35 foul shots. Wow. And I was like, that's better than guys that are getting paid millions upon millions and millions of dollars. And but even those high level professionals are not going to always make it. And it goes back to what I was saying about sin, right? Being that missing the mark. And I think as long as we're really striving to hit the mark, as long as the ideal is there and that's intact, well, and that's why obviously we have what we call confession, reconciliation, that we have that moment to kind of get back on target. But, it's just, don't ever stop striving for that. And I think you would say the same thing. Someone came into you, for training, and say, hey, Phil, I haven't exercised in the last 2 weeks or whatever. I fell off the wagon. It's like, all right, well, let's start again.
Get back on, and the thing I want to circle back to this, because I want to ask you this for, to help people build your spiritual strength. I know what I do is I employ consistency to my training. I work out every day, do something. Even on my days off, I'm still doing something. What are some tips that we can give our audience to, improve and build their spiritual strength?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, as I said before, that kind of that buffet style table that's there. Again, Catholicism is the religion I know best, but we have so many different ways to pray. So when I find someone who's been away for a while, I said, well, try to pray the rosary for a day or two or whatever. Try a little Lectio Divina. Hey, try to come to Mass every Sunday. Try, like little baby steps. And then what you find that, really resonates with you, well, then keep running with that. For example, I tried many different ways of exercising, and I found that the stationary bicycle plus some other stretches and things I do is like the right amount for me. It's a consistent thing. I can do it because I have it right there in my bedroom. It's early in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. And it's that consistency. It goes back, but it's like you have to find it. Because if, for example, that example I gave of that priest, who's a really good holy priest, but the rosary just doesn't resonate with him, well, he's not going to find his path to holiness by praying the rosary if it just doesn't work. If these kettlebells, right, don't,
Nice.
I'm getting better.
There you go.
If if that doesn't work for someone, it doesn't mean that's the only way to exercise. I mean, you could exercise in hundreds, thousands of different ways. So I would say the same thing. So for each one of us to realize that it's kind of like they say about the snowflakes. Every snowflake is individual. Every single human being is individual. So try, see what resonates. And even over time, like there's this thing called centering prayer, kind of contemplative type things. I did that for a while. I do more of the meditative type things right now. But over cycles of our life, sometimes our focus changes. And there may be other ways to pray, but it's making that effort every day. Like you were just saying, making that effort, whatever it is, find what resonates with you. And hey, if it's walking in nature, like walk in nature, but make sure that it really is a dialogue with God, and don't make it like an either or. That's one thing I often say to people. Like, I really believe our religion is about both and rather than either or. It's not saying like, well, I'm spiritual, but not religious. Well, it's like, no, it's both things are necessary. I mean, if you're just a religious person who obeys all the rules, but you don't have a spirituality, that's lacking. But if you're really, really spiritual and you're all this connection, but you don't have a religiosity tying you to a community, that's also weakness. It's both and, both spiritual and religious, I think, is the key to a balanced life.
Well, you brought something up. Too, is the community. Okay, if you're just spiritual and you're not involved in some type of religious activity, you lose that sense of community. And the thing is, especially during times of trouble, times of joy, you want to share both of those.
Yes.
So if you have a community to do that with, it makes it a lot easier and better.
Yeah. Oh, and I just gave a homily a few months ago on that, a joy shared is doubled and a sorrow shared is cut in half. And that's what the beauty of the community is, that in times of desolation, when someone loses a family member, right, that the whole community gathers around, supports you. I mean, I love in our communities here, when someone gets cancer, I mean, I don't love that they get cancer, but when someone does, people set up a food train, people rally around, they set up a GoFundMe page. I mean, there's this whole outpouring of love by a community in those moments. So those are the great things. There was a study done, and I'd share this with you, that Christopher Ellison down in Texas a number of years ago was studying life expectancy rates. And one of the things that they found is that people who go to church every week, over the course of time, they actually live on average 7 years longer than people who never go to church.
So, I film church every week.
So you're there every week.
I film it. So
Maybe if
I
you
live
watch
stream
it, if you watch it again, maybe you get 14 years.
maybe if I had to edit it,
They say if you sing, you pray twice. I don't know if you're videotaping it.
Video it, and I edit it. That's twice.
Yeah,
Too.
there you go. You got it. So you should have 14
Thanks
years.
for the
That's it,
14.
right?
Yeah.
Double it.
But part of that, as I was reading through that, because I am obviously a religious person, but I'm also trained scientifically.
Yes.
So you always look for other variables. Is it just religion that makes it, a person to live longer? I don't think it's just that. Yes, religion gives us some of the coping mechanisms. Yes, religion helps us to put things in perspective, and above all, the eternal perspective. But I also believe it is that community part, right?
Oh, yeah.
So someone who's going to a community every week. I mean, for example, we have Mass every morning at 7 a.m., 9 a.m. and then obviously all the 6 masses on the weekend. But those communities at 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. people, it's really beautiful that they all sit in their same pews, they all have their same spots, and therefore it makes it easier when you realize someone's not there. Like one of our guys, Joe, wasn't there last week, and a number of these different people, hey, Father, is Joe okay? Is Joe okay? We haven't seen Joe this week. I'm like, Joe is fine. You know, he's just he had to take care of some family things, but he'll be back next week. And just that knowing that you're loved and you're cared for, and if you're missing, people notice.
Right.
You know, if you're not a part of a community, well, there's no one there to notice or to help out because you're not at the table.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because there's also been studies that showed that married people tend to last longer, as well as dog owners. So here you go. If you walk with your wife, if you walk your dog to church with your wife, I wonder how much longer you're going to live.
But that was kind of like the correlation I was trying to make with the ice. You put yourself in these situations and you have these feelings. It's going to manipulate the physical world because we think of spiritual world. We don't think of tangible things we can touch. Yeah. But they do translate to the physical world and your wellness and your well-being.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
7 years, 14 for me. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. And I'm a cat owner, so I don't know. I don't know. It's not going to reduce my number now.
Is it a black cat? I don't know.
Actually, I think cats are included in that too. You know,
is it?
Some type of pet that cares about you and that you care about.
Oh, and it's unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
I'm sure you've heard that joke, right? Find out who loves you more, your dog or your wife.
Oh, please.
Do you know the test?
What's the test?
You put them both in the trunk of your car for 20 minutes, and then you open it up, and you'll really know which one loves you.
Well, I know. The only one who gets up to greet me is my dog.
Careful, Amy's watching. You better be careful, Phil. Amy's watching. She gave us the heart before. It might change in a minute.
She'll put a big extra.
Amy, I'm glad you're watching there. Oh, that's great. But yeah, so I think that the love of a community is really something so essential. And it goes back to everything we were talking about before. It's the family community, it's the parish community. It's really being a part of ultimately God's community, and that we see each other as brothers and sisters of that same God. And I think if we did that, you know, what a different world it would be. I remember my dad years ago gave each of us kids like a little, I don't think a magnet type thing, message that you put on your refrigerator, said, the thing that your heavenly Father desires most is that you treat your brothers and sisters on earth with the greatest amount of love. You know, and that, I think if we were all to do that and to recognize that, I mean, again, what a different world it would
absolutely.
be.
100%. So, Father Stephen, you've given us some great input today. I mean, this is just an incredible episode for number 60.
Absolutely.
That's a great way to go. Let's thank one of our other sponsors. We're going to go to vidhubplay.com. It is a free, I don't mean it's free, it's free. You know, you can just log on to it, but it's like a YouTube, but it's not censored in a way that these people are going to go and, you know, pull things down and so forth. So actually I had remember that text I had last week? Yeah. We had more views than they have subscribers. Yeah, he's like, whoa. It was I put a video up, got over 10,000 views, like bang, quick. So it's brand new. Check it out. They're one of our sponsors. I mentioned Fit Team, right?
Yep.
And I think I got there. Oh, Body Bell Method.
Yeah.
Don't forget to go to Body Bell Method. It's the world's only kettlebell bodyweight dynamic tension certification based on minimalist approach to strength, health, and fitness. The system is recognized by both ACE and NASM for continuing education credits. And of course, you know, we have Health is a Wealth. Definitely go log on to that, healthisawealth.com. It's a new interactive virtual platform for health, wellness, fitness, have doctors, fitness experts, chiropractors, everything you want. Even educators are on this now. And of course, the Master Phil in Your Corner podcast. If you happen to miss the live episodes or don't want to watch on YouTube or Rumble or VidHub Play, you can always go to our website. And if you want to become a sponsor and get a placement on the website and also get mentioned here, just give us a call. Other than that, Thank you very much. And
Nice
this was
job, guys.
fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks
Absolutely.
for having me on.
Yeah,
Great to be with
My
you guys.
pleasure.
Great job, guys. And thank you for watching another episode of Master Phil in your corner.
Strength and honor.